Scientists are rethinking how valley fever is caught and spread. Dust storms used to be considered a major cause, but new research is now focusing on contaminated soil. And to learn more, we welcome Dr. Dave Engelthaler, Director of TGen North. Good to see you in person. It's usually by way of Zoom because you're up in Flagstaff and we're talking COVID.
Yeah, good to see you, Ted.
Yeah, we're not talking COVID this time. We're talking valley fever. Let's start with the definition. What is valley fever?
Valley fever is a fungal disease that we in the Southwest get exposed to because it lives in the soils, these very hot soils. Fungus gets up in the air, we breathe it in, and it causes a pneumonia-like illness for most people that notice it. And then it can go on to cause very serious illness, even death. But it's really limited to the very hot, dry parts of the Southwest.
So symptoms, diagnosis, what's involved?
Yeah, so really where people will notice that they have valley fever is when they have what we call walking pneumonia, where it's a nagging cough, difficulty breathing. It's not enough to lay you up or go to the hospital, but you'll miss work, maybe you miss school, and it goes on for weeks. Unfortunately, what happens is doctors don't always pick up that it might be valley fever, and they treat you for bacterial pneumonia, and antibiotics don't work for a fungal disease. And so that can go on for several weeks before we even find out.
Can you have it with no symptoms?
Absolutely. In fact, most people get exposed, they don't develop symptoms. They don't even know that they got infected. Their immune system will respond and clear it, and then you don't get those pneumonia-like symptoms. So we miss those people, and we're just looking for patients to try to understand where and how much is being spread around. So we actually have to have better tools than just looking at patients, because most people don't actually become very sick.
Yeah, it's often said if you live here long enough, you got it. You've either had it and you don't know it, or you had it and you knew it.
Yeah, there's a really good chance that, after about 10 years, you've been exposed to it and you may never even know.
So how do you get it and how is it spread? And talk about your research here, because every time there's a dust storm, I think all of us think, oh boy, here we go. But that's not necessarily the case, is it?
That's a great point. We've built up some mythologies in the Southwest that these dust storms, the haboobs, really are the drivers of valley fever. And if we can just stay away from those, then we're all good. Our research recently, we've been working with the county health department, we've been working with the state health department, Homeland Security, and CDC to look at air filters that are placed all around the valley to look for when does fungus get in the air, the fungal spores, and then when are people exposed. And it looks like it's not after these haboobs, that it may be something else that we really need to focus on.
So it can pop up anywhere, anytime, in any kind of soil?
It can pop up in various places, but it had to have already been in the soil. So we know that it's sketchy in the soil, that it's really patchy, that you could find it in the soil in one place and go a meter away and it's not there.
Oh boy.
So it's not just ever present, and it's not just ever present in the air either. We just know that when it's in the soil in many places in the Southwest, especially the desert or places where the soil hasn't been highly disturbed, the fungus can be there and get disturbed and kicked in the air.
How long does it sit there? It's like a virus sitting in your body waiting to explode? Does the fungus ever die?
Yeah, the fungus is doing just fine out in the soil, surviving. It's been here likely millions of years, surviving. And so it just grows and survives, likely infects wildlife, rodents.
Yeah.
Those animals will die, then the fungus gets out of them back into the soil, and it kind of perpetuates that way. So it has been here a very long time. We become exposed to it when we do things to get it up out of the soil and breathe it in. And we think that that's probably the most important thing is there's probably 1,000 incidents a day all over the valley that's causing valley fever spores to get in the air. And sometimes maybe it's development, new construction, that could last for weeks to months, and there's just continual exposure.
But if it could be, something here and a meter away, something there, you could be out gardening, you could be out playing golf, you could be doing anything that disturbs the ground, correct?
That's correct. In fact, all of those are actual potential causes of an exposure. Gardening in an area that actually maybe did have some rodent burrows or something. That's one of those things that we don't know exactly where it's going to show up.
And again, you can say this stuff can lay dormant forever.
Yeah, it certainly has been here a lot longer than we humans have been here.
So is there a way to know that this area is a hot spot, this area is not?
Yeah, so for the very first time, and I mentioned this air filter study that we've been doing, this is the very first time anybody's looked in the air for the fungus and where it moves around during the valley. What we're likely seeing, and we're still doing more studies with satellite imagery and remote sensing, that it's probably specific construction activities, maybe where an old farm field got turned over and turned into a condominium, during that period of time, we're probably causing fungus to get in the air, and then that surrounding neighborhood may be more at risk. What's great is that developers do know this, and they do things to water down dust and all of that. And so we may just need to work with them more to better prevent the fungus from getting in the air.
When you water down dust, though, you are not getting rid of the fungus, you're just keeping the fungus from coming up, true?
That is correct. The fungus is really a permanent part of our landscape, and we're not going to get rid of it. What we can do is be better about not getting it to the air.
Okay, so how do we be better about that? How do you fight valley fever? What does this research now do in the fight against valley fever?
Well, what we're hoping our next steps is we're going to work very closely with the county health department to be able to really pinpoint and see what actually does cause those spores to get in the air. And then we target efforts around that. Instead of just telling everybody there's a general risk, let's go to find where we're finding it being pushed up into the air using this air filter study. So it's really exciting. We can use these new technologies and genomics to really track this fungus. And I think we're going to come up with better ways to prevent people getting exposed.
That'd be fantastic if there'd be a way to actually have some sort of monitor. And it's like, don't go over here. I mean, it's starting to don't tick, 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 or whatever it does.
Yeah, we have air pollution warnings and
yes.
monitoring the air. We're looking for things like that might give us better tools to give people more precise information so they can make better decisions about potentially getting exposed.
One last question here. So let's say someone has been gardening or tilling the soil or doing something in an area. Do the spores go straight up? Do they go straight out? If they go out, how far do they go? Because then we get back to dust storm territory, don't we?
Yeah. We've really been looking at how this fungus disperses, and it probably doesn't go off, for many, many miles once it gets up in the air. It's going to settle out. It's particle, and so it may take a while to settle out. We don't know how far that distance is, but when it's something very small like gardening, it's probably not. It's not a big plume of something going anywhere, and it's probably fairly localized exposure. And a lot of people who've been gardening have been exposed to the soil for years. They've likely been exposed to valley fever.
But if you do walk through an area where the spores have come up, I mean, how long do they stay up? I mean, I feel like we're talking about COVID again here. How long does it stay in the air?
I know. Well, for the first time, we're actually starting to look at that. So we don't know yet. But we do know some things about particle physics through COVID. How long did things stay in the air and dust and the different particle sizes? So that's another area that we need to look at, is trying to understand how much gets up, and then so how long does that contamination last?
Wow.
In a particular area.
Next set of research for you. Great stuff here, Dr. Dave Engelthaler. Good information and good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ted.